everybody. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to my photography shopping live stream and open Q&A photo chat. Today, usually I like to just talk about gear and deals that I found during the week, and there's a few. It's a little bit lean pickings this week. I think next month will be the really big month for deals on the bigger ticket items because summer will start to come into full swing, and that's when I usually see a lot more deals. Usually, I see a bunch in May as well, but um, they're okay. Nothing particularly interesting. I think on the big ticket items, things like the Nikon cameras are pretty good deals right now. I've had my eye on the Nikon Z2. You can buy brand new warranty, for like 1,800 bucks. That's a deal. And then some of their lenses, but I'd probably buy mostly third-party lenses for the Nikon Z mount because the Viltrox in particular are pretty good, especially for the money. And let's see, the best deal right now, like in Micro Four Thirds, is probably the 60 millimeter macro. It's on sale for like 397 or 399, and I bought mine used in mint condition without the lens hood, without a warranty for like $315 plus tax. So, uh, I don't see a reason to buy used when you can get brand new for just a little more with warranty and get the lens hood. Because if I had the price of the lens hood back in, if I wanted the original, I didn't really want the original lens hood anyway. Uh, I'd be almost back up to 399 anyway. So I think those are the two best deals on the big ticket items. On the I gotta unplug this. This is off, but it's warm. It shouldn't be. Anyway, uh, it's like 20 years old. It's my little heater for my coffee, but I drink iced coffee in the spring and summer, so I don't need it. Anywho, but let's go ahead and get right into the deals. And I see Robert's here. Good to see you, and Jeff and Erna and Lam. Good to see you guys. I'm sorry I don't have more focus on like UK type deals. I just don't have a feel for pricing over there because of the currency exchange, for one, but then the just the overall deals you guys get. Because there was a deal for like an OM1, I think, plus two pro lenses uh, for like 3,000 or something. Some ridiculously low price. Where if you'd bought the pro lenses separately, you'd have paid almost that much. And so I don't want to try to pick deals in other countries when I don't have a feel for a typical good deal, right? And hey, Marco, how are you? Well, you're in Vegas, man. You must be out there for some event. What's going on out there? Trade show or something, right? Okay. So I did pick out a few. Some of them are kind of held over. Some of them I need to prune a little bit from the list. But let's see what we got. So, okay, so the first thing I found, this is a really actually very useful battery pack. It has both a 20 volt, or I'm sorry, 14 volt, and a 100 watt PD. And this has 74 watt hours of energy in the battery. So it's a really pretty good battery. They have a 100 watt version here, which is also a good deal. A 100 watt battery is going to cost you 80 bucks in just about, at least $80 in any form factor. But this is in form factor of basically a handle. Now they have an LED light up here because it does have the 14 volt. A lot of LED lights, if you want to get the maximum 100% setting out of it, you have to use the 14.8 volt. Uh, Even if you attach a 100 watt PD cable to it, it usually only goes up to 85%. So that's why they're showing the LED light, and this is certainly a good use for it if you're a videographer, even even photographer, but a little 60-watt LED light or 80-watt LED light that you would put on here wouldn't really be enough for most, daytime outdoor photography. But this is an excellent way to power your camera if it has a USB-C port. You just attach this to the bottom of the camera, um, into the quarter 20 screw, like the tripod mount. I wouldn't recommend that as much as, mounting it to a base plate on your camera so that the weight is distributed throughout the bottom of the camera rather than just on the tripod uh, mount. Especially with plastic bodied cameras, which there's a lot of, EM5, OM5, Canon R8, Canon R50, some of the Nikons, they're all plastic. So I wouldn't recommend directly attaching to the tripod mount on those cameras, but for if you have the uh, full body base plate, right, covers the entire bottom, then the weight's distributed and you can screw it directly into the base plate. And I know you're thinking, why not just carry a couple extra spare batteries? Uh, and that's certainly the best way to do it. But I found that, you know, I can I will charge the battery while I'm using the camera, and for certain things like when I'm doing a lot of focus stacking and pro capture, you can burn through batteries pretty quickly. And if you only brought one extra, and you're going to spend several hours in the field, you could run out pretty quickly. So this is kind of a nice way to keep shooting without worrying about your battery. So it's kind of like it's a battery grip, as it says here, and I found it more useful than I thought. You can also use this for like your GoPro or Action Cam or whatever. But I think the battery grips are more useful than just having a separate power bank sometimes, because power banks don't normally have quarter 20 screw attachments and things. And this is a good deal, 30% off. I'm thinking about getting one. I have one, but it's only got like a 20 watt hour battery in it. So it's been adequate, but I can get one with 74 watt hours for $62. That's a pretty good deal. So I'm thinking about this myself. Uh, this extension arm, this is the exact same one as the one I reviewed, but it had a different brand name on it. And this is a heavy duty extension pole. So, and it rarely goes on sale, but this one is $47. And I found these very, very useful in the studio mostly. In the field, it's a little bit heavy because it is a heavy duty, uh, extension arm. But I have taken it on the field, and I've done it a couple times, and I'm like, this is a bit much to carry extra. But in the studio, for doing flat lay type photography, and other types of things where you want to get the camera away from the tripod, this is an excellent tool. So I would say this is a nice to have and tool to have if you're thinking about doing any kind of flat lay or you need to move the camera off of the center of the tripod. Particularly in a studio, this is a great option, and it's very, very sturdy. Okay, this is a great deal. 58 millimeters, true color variable ND filter. It's just a 2 to 400. So what is that? That's 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. It's like a 9-stop filter. Does it say exactly? Oh, it does say 9 stops right here. So being a true color ND filter for $16 is a great deal. The 58 millimeter filter thread fits a lot of the micro four third lenses, like the 12 to 45 f4 Pro, the 40 to 150 kit lens, the 75 millimeter f 1.8, and variable ND filters are very, very useful. As you know, for long exposure type photography, you can do live comp during the day. You can use this in addition to the live ND filters that we have in the Micro Four Thirds, but uh, this is a great. I'm sorry, my phone keeps going crazy here. The they're very, very useful for all different kinds of photography, flash photography, doing portraits, and also, of course, videography. The only thing you have to be careful with the 9-stop versions, because most of these should be 5-stop. The 9-stop ones, you got a potential for an X pattern, like some unwanted shading in your photography. So, uh, on super telephoto lenses like the 40 to 150, you won't have to worry as much with that kind of effect. However, the wider you go, if you're, say, equivalent focal lengths of 50 millimeters or less. So let's say you're at on a Micro Four Thirds, it'd be a 25 millimeter f1.8 or the f1.4, whatever. You probably don't want to dial in more than 4 or 5 stops. Otherwise, you'll start to get some unwanted shading. But this goes back to knowing your gear, right, and your tools. If you know your gear and how to use these kinds of filters, this is an amazing deal. I you know And you can, of course, spend 100, $200 on a good variable ND filter, but if you're not going to use it that much, just time to time, or you're experimenting, getting started in photography, this is the kind of filter that you get. So you can see what you can do. And then as you grow in your photography and image quality becomes paramount, you know, because a lot of people they buy expensive filters right off the bat and then they don't know how to use it. And it's really, honestly, it's money wasted. So I always suggest getting, on these kind of items, start with a budget, very tight, you know, uh, budget on these kind of items. So you're not just overspending your money in areas of photography that you may have no interest in. You may never do flash portrait photography. You may never do long exposure or live comp during the daytime. Uh, or you might do it once or twice a year. Something like this might get you into it, and as you develop your skill set, you can go ahead and buy the super expensive filters, but you may be perfectly fine with this forever. I see no reason not to use this filter. Uh, you know, indefinitely, because it's just a filter. There's not really any moving parts to speak of. And if it gets scratched or you lose it, you're not out $100, $200, right? You're out $16. So I like that deal there. This is for Canon shooters, primarily the DSLRs. This may work in some of the mirrorless Canons as well, but you're going to get weird performance out of these. It's better like in the DSLRs where generic batteries and DSLRs, I really don't have a big problem with in general because DSLR battery life is just uh, feels unlimited, right? $13 including the charger. If nothing else, the charger is worth almost $13. I say that's like an $8 to $10 charger, but then you get a couple of spare batteries that really, again, are throwaway batteries or backup batteries. I wouldn't use these on a regular basis, but in a pinch, they're very, very useful, especially in DSLRs. You won't really notice much difference in performance because you can shoot for days on end with a single battery a lot of times in a DSLR. Um, okay, and there's some lens caps here. The 52 millimeter is very common Nikon lens caps. So if you like to shoot vintage glass and adapt them to your mirrorless cameras, and you want to put a lens cap on the lens, because sometimes you don't have the lens cap anymore, or you bought it and it didn't come with one. For $3, you can get a nice little lens cap for your adapted lenses. And then this deal here, I got mixed feelings about. It's a good deal, and this is a TRS pin. So it's going to work with like the Olympus cameras that have the 2.5 millimeter jack and certain Panasonics. Some Panasonics need the TRRS, where if you look at closely this pin here, you'll see two black stripes. Sometimes you might see three black stripes, but this should work just fine with most cameras, even like Canon, Nikon, etc. But that said, if you get this and it doesn't work, Amazon has a very liberal policy for returns. You can return it, no problem. But I have this trigger and it works fine. It's a little better made because you can get the Pixco uh, or Pixel. I'm sorry, it's called Pixel. Pixel makes a very similar trigger with in terms of features, but this one's a little nicer made, a little nicer display, nicer buttons. So this is a little higher quality for the same price because the Pixel triggers are between $40 and $50. This one is right now it's 38. Let's say $40 for all intents and purposes, but it's a higher quality one in my opinion in terms of the buttons and the screen. The screen's easier to read, it's a little bit larger, and the buttons are higher quality, have a more tactile feel to them. So I like this trigger for all of that, but just be very, very careful because the cable is a little tricky, and you can use this wire directly to the camera as well. You don't have to do the wireless function. But yeah, so I like this. Oh, see right here. See the cable down here. Uh, it has three black stripes on it. That's called a TRRS. That's probably for the Panasonics. And then this cable here is for the Olympus and Canon and a lot of other cameras. They typically use the TRS 2.5 millimeter jack. So this is going to work with a lot of cameras. And $39 is a good deal. Okay, I'm going to remove this filter. I don't recommend this one because this is not a true color ND filter. But you'll notice that it's limited to 4 or 5, what is that, 5 stops there, right? Or 4 stops. My math is terrible. But 3 to 7 stops with no X cross pattern. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about the other filter, which is a 9-stop filter. If you dial in too much, you're going to get an X cross pattern. The downside to this filter, so that's the upside with this filter, is you can probably go as wide as 12 millimeters. Just try to stay under 7 stops. Don't dial it all the way, and you'll probably be okay. But for everything above that, you'll be perfectly fine. Again, it's the 58 millimeter filter thread. The reason I'm going to remove this is because this is not a true color ND. So you're going to get a very yellow overcast or color tint to your images. It is easily correctable in post processing if you're prepared for it. If you know that, again, know your gear, right? But uh, you have to bring a white card or a white piece of paper with you. You have to keep in mind about the white balance. And if you're doing an event or something where you're using flash and you want to use an ND filter, or you're doing video, like if you're doing video, absolutely, this is a problem because the white balance constantly changes with video as you're moving around. So the main reason I'm going to remove this is because the other filter, even though it has that X cross pattern problem, it is a true color filter, and it's only $4 more. So I would rather take the $4 more, pay $4 more, and get a true color than one that's not a true color. And then, because it's a 9-stop, it does give you some additional options. But just keep in mind, you're probably never going to dial in the full 9 stops on most of your lenses, wide-angle lenses. All right, memory. So I'm always a proponent of the V60 card in 99% of the cameras that can use a UHS-2 card. Most cameras cannot output video or data fast enough to a UHS-2 card to max out its capacity at V90 or at V60. Now, there are a few video-centric cameras that will require a V90 card, but for photography, there's no camera that needs a V90 card. You can get away with a V60 card and see the same effective burst rates and buffer clearing as you would with a V90 card, if we're talking about photography. So, and these cards are like less than half the price of a V90 card. So you can buy two of these, actually a quarter of the price, because a 256 gig V90 card is almost $200. Why spend $200 if you're primarily a photographer and you're shooting 4K video or less? Oh, why spend four times the money for V90 if you're not going to see any difference in performance? So get the V60 card with the one caveat: if you are shooting very high bitrate video, there's some like 4K 120, 422 10-bit, or 8K 422, these kind of video cameras that have these high-end specs will need a V90, but a lot of times these high-end cameras also take CF Express cards, thereby negating, the need for a V90 card anyway. But I focus primarily on photography, so this is a good deal. I've seen 256 gig V60 cards of a decent brand. Okay, I'm not talking about junk. Sabrent is a good brand. Uh, but like the PNY, I've seen it as low as $37. But it's rare. That only happens maybe 2 or 3 times a year. If you need a memory card now, this is a good deal. Uh, and you're only going to pay about $5 or $6 more than the very best deal you can get at certain times of the year. So I like this card. I like this brand for all the reasons I talked about. And the other ones are on sale too. If you want a 512 or you just want a 128, you can save quite a bit there. I recommend the 256, uh, especially if you're a sports action wildlife shooter. You will burn through 256 gig, believe it or not, if you like to use Pro Capture and SH2 and all of that. High speed continuous shutter. This is the PNY version. You can see the 256 gig is not really as good a deal as the Sabrent, but the 128 gig is just as good a deal. So if you already have a PNY card, you can match the brands and get this PNY card. And even though it says it's slower here, it's still a V60 card, and you're not going to have any issues with this in terms of photography performance. Okay, this light, I have a video coming out later today about this light, but there's a $170 coupon. So that makes this light $230. This is a 300 watt bicolor LED light. For $230, you're not going to get a 300 watt light, LED light anywhere. And GVM is a very good brand. I have a lot of their products and I have no problems with any of them. I was trying to think, if you watch my video review, the only cons that I had for this light was really just the rear panel. See if there's a picture of it in here. Of course, they don't show the rear panel because that's where I have the most criticism. See if there's a picture down here. Uh, let's see. Nope. Haha. Okay. Anyway, well, there you can see a little bit of the rear panel here. Basically, my only problem with the rear panel is the LCD display. The fonts are really tiny. I can't see them. Not with my dying eyes. When I put my glasses on, it's perfectly clear, but they made the fonts too small. They could have filled up the screen with the font, because there's a lot of negative space on the screen. Why not use it to fill up and use larger fonts so you can see the intensity setting and the Kelvin temperature rather than making it so tiny? That's my only complaint. The other thing is the buttons and dials are black. So before I turn the light on or have lights on in the studio, it's hard to see the buttons. But there's only two. So it's not like, there's a myriad of buttons that you have to try and find and feel your way around. But and that's a very, very minor complaint. But everything else about the light is very, very good, especially 230. I wouldn't pay $400, but I would definitely pay $230 for a light like this. And 300 watts is a lot of power. And it comes with this new reflector that is really, really bright. I use this outdoors. I had to set the light to 10% because it was so bright on my face. And you'll see all that in my video. But definitely check this light out. If you've been looking at or thinking about LED lights, always buy the most powerful lights you can afford when it comes to LED lighting. And yeah, you can get away with lower power lights in a small studio. Like I'm just using a 60-watt LED light here for doing the live stream. But this is more for photography, product photography, still life, videography outdoors. This light is going to give you enough power. So 230 bucks. That's a killer deal. Uh, okay, then I think the rest of this stuff is stuff that has been here since last week. I think most of this still holds. This is out of stock now. Let's see. This is not on sale. So I need to kind of prune some of these items. I talked about this flash last week. It's still a very good price right now. And some of these filters are okay. Not great deals. So I would skip a lot of the filters down here until I can prune it. Oh man, this bag was a good deal and it's sold out, of course, right? So a lot of these deals, you really have to act on them when I have them in the stream here. Because particularly bags tend to sell out fast when they're on a good deal. So uh, I didn't find any really good bag deals this week. This is a good deal for this thing. This works well. I have another brand of this. They're all generic, but this works really well. I paid $60 for mine. Now it's on sale for $36. Uh, but I've gotten my $60 worth out of it, and it's something I'm going to keep for a long time. So I'm not worried about it. Let's see if there's any other lenses. Yeah, so the 75 to 300 is good deal. I've talked about these lenses to no end. These are all excellent lenses, and they're all at excellent prices right now. This backpack is still a good deal. This one's it's okay. Let's see if there's a coupon or anything in here. No, there was a coupon for this, I thought before, that brought this under $40, but I don't see that now. But it's a decent bag. This is a great monopod. Some of these deals, even though they're not on sale, they're a good deal, really good value. Like this macro lens adapter, 40 bucks. This almost never goes on sale. Yeah, all year this has not been on sale. So I use this. I don't see any degradation in image quality. Uh, it's easy to use. I prefer this over extension tubes now. You can, of course, combine extension tubes with this, but let's not get carried away. If you're doing that, you might as well get a macro lens, like a real macro lens, rather than, getting carried away with extension tubes and adapters and diopter. This is basically a diopter. Uh, but if you're on a budget, this is a great way to convert most of your lenses to at least 0.5x. Like you can probably magnify. Now, you probably won't get 1 to 1x. I've been able to do it with extension tubes and stuff, but this will get you a lot closer and get you very, very good uh, close-up photography, borderline macro, but not quite 1 to 1. And this is an example of what I was talking about earlier about having a full base plate. This one has also a grip. This is one that I've bought. Um, And I paid $59 for mine. Man, it's down to $43. So this is a good deal. And it looks like you may be able to get this 10% in addition. So you're going to pay like 40 bucks for this. So definitely, if you have an OM5 or EM5 Mark III, This is an excellent grip. Has Arca Swiss base and also has a separate quarter 20 screw, so you're not mounting directly into the. So this is where I would put the battery grip. I would attach it here. Wouldn't work with the OM5 or EM5 Mark III because it has a USB 2, it has the older micro USB attachment, so it's not going to help you directly. You can always charge a battery in between shooting if you have that battery grip attached, but you're not going to be able to use the camera and charge the battery at the same time, like the OM1 and other cameras that have USB-C. All right, that's it. So let me go back to the chat section and see how you guys are doing, if I can answer any questions. Okay, so Lamb says, don't worry about it. I've followed you for years, loved your Olympus. Thank you, Lamb. I appreciate it. Um, and Marco says, yeah, Dell World of, oh, Dell. Okay, that's cool. Dell makes good stuff. Dell is, I don't know if I ever told you this story, but back in the day, I used to be wholesale computer parts. And, it's a good business. And one time, I got a box of hard drives, and the invoice was in there. And this is one of those deals where it fell off the back of a UPS truck. Somebody found it and gave it to me and sold it to me for a really good deal. And of course, after I got it, UPS called and talked about this lost shipment, right? So I gave it back to them and I was out, whatever money I spent, that's fine. But the invoice in there was to Dell. And I was paying $200 a drive, wholesale. Dell was paying $70 a drive, wholesale, for the same exact hard drive. And I was like, it's no freaking wonder I cannot compete directly with Dell. And I was really trying to match some of the Dell pricing on, because I used to white box PCs and things too. And I was like, how does Dell do this? The margins are so freaking thin. But when I saw that they were paying about almost a third of what I was paying, and I was buying I wasn't buying containerfuls of hard drive, but I was buying a substantial amount, okay? Uh, you know, cases of drives, 50 to 100 at a time, uh, uh, almost every day, right, on hard drives. And my God, I could not believe uh, the difference in pricing. So anyway, that's why it's really hard for this little guy to really compete against these big corporations sometimes. And this was back when you could do these kind of things. I was fairly competitive on most things, but the margins got so thin that I had to get out of that business and I couldn't do it anymore. But yeah, that was a big eye opener to the difference in pricing. Because Dell is buying by the container, right? There or by the shipload. Uh, but I was buying by the caseload, but not by the container, and not by the like. I would buy one box out of a container, every few days or every week. And Dell is probably buying full containers or full shiploads. But yeah, certainly an economy of scale there. Okay, and Seraphin, good to see you. Says I'll be in Vegas Saturday for the 20-year anniversary for your 20. Oh, congratulations! Struggling on what camera to take. Uh, well, okay. So obviously you want a travel camera, right? So what I would recommend is take a camera that is your best camera, but not your most expensive, in case it gets stolen. Because I'm telling you, man, Vegas, I've heard too many stories. You come back to your hotel room and your stuff is gone, even though your hotel room's locked and everything. So take a camera that you can carry with you always. So it's going to be relatively small, a couple lenses, and don't leave anything in your hotel. If you do take your expensive camera, don't leave it in the hotel. Always take it with you. I understand in the casinos, if you like to go into casinos, you may not be able to do that. I haven't been to Vegas in 20 years or 25 years. It's been at least 25 years since I've been to Vegas. It's been at least 25 years since I've been on a plane, if I want to be honest. But uh, yeah, that's what I would say. Uh, and just as I bought the OM1 12 to 42.8 Pro 2, the 4150. Oh, yeah. This is what I'm talking about. Those two lenses alone are worth $2,000, and you got the camera for free, basically. That's crazy. Well, I've never seen that deal here ever. Uh, Hi, Paul. How are you? Good morning. Hope your week has started great. It has. I got a big frickin' review done. I'm gonna post it maybe after this live stream. A video review on an LED light. It just comes down to it just turns into work doing these video reviews, and they're not as fun as they used to be. I got two more I got to do, and they're relatively easy. One is a lens, and one is just a memory card. I can crank those. I can crank out the memory card one probably tomorrow. And then the lens, I'm going to go out and take some pictures and do some testing. Lenses are a little harder, but they're not as difficult as doing lighting, believe it or not. Lighting is pretty hard to do. Okay, but lighting is kind of my favorite product, flashes, LED lighting, because photography is all about lighting. So, uh, they offered me this $300 light to review, and they gave me a reflector. So, I wasn't paid other than just getting this stuff free. Uh, and I try to give some examples, and I did a short thing. If you watch the video, you'll see. You'll see. The first half of the video is really just the things I like about the light. Then the second half really gets into uh, I do a product photography shot and I do a portrait shot, and I show how to use the light to do those things. And Paul says, I picked up that 39 millimeter adapter for Nikon Z-mount. Now you have me working to figure out what lens to get. Oh yeah, you have a good variety of choices. Just be careful of fungus on these vintage lenses, right? That's kind of the biggest problem. And stuck aperture blades. That's not quite as critical. Uh, but really, why get one with stuck aperture blades if you can get one without stuck aperture blades? Okay. But I think the Helios is a popular one to get, right? A lot of people recommend that lens, and they used to be pretty cheap. I don't know what they sell for now, but and Bruce says, I've got a question about flash sync on my EM5 Mark II. I've been playing with the Kodak 685 II and found I get rolling shutter below the camera sync speed of 1/250th. Expected behavior, yes. So need to elaborate a little bit more, but basically if you're using flash and you're getting rolling shutter, that tells me you're mixing ambient light together with the flash photography. And there's probably a balance there, 50-50 or less. Like it's probably 50 to 80% ambient light and probably 20-25%. So you're using the flash more as a fill light, and you're obviously moving the camera, right? Or the subject is moving at a relatively fast speed, and you're getting rolling shutter. So Uh, the it is expected behavior. You didn't ask for a solution, but really the only solution is use full mechanical shutter. The other problem, the M5 Mark II, the other problem is it depends on the focal length, but if you're shooting at 40 to 150, that range, particularly on the longer end, you can get shutter shock on the M5 Mark II. So, assuming you're not shooting longer than say a 45 millimeter f1.8, or you have the 12 to 40 or the 12 to 45 pro lenses, you'll be okay with the shutter shock. Uh, and try and use anti-shock mode. But yeah, you got to use mechanical shutter basically with flash on that camera, because I think the sync speed without flash is like 1/15th of a second or something ridiculous. So it's not usable in without mechanical shutter if it lets you at all. But you really need to use more flash power and less ambient light to get the shot, assuming that's the aesthetic that you can work with, right? Because some scenes you want to capture all of the ambient light and just use the flash as fill in. But the only way around that is just to use more. So you really want an 80/20 ratio where it's like 80-90% flash is illuminating the subject, and then, you know, 10% is illuminating from ambient light. Ideally, you want flash to be 99% of the light, because you might get a little bit of haloing, particularly with motion, unless the flash is providing all of the light to get rid of that rolling shutter. Uh, and I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. That's a great question. I have to give that some more thought. I've never shot moving subjects with flash so much where I would experience rolling shutter. But I'm not in the habit of mixing flash and ambient light typically. Typically, I'm using only flash for the exposure. Okay, anyway, give that a shot. Let's see. And hey, Rob, snuck in. Oh, hey, Adam, how are you? Off work for. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, funerals are rough. Uh, I don't like going to them, but I'm definitely gonna make, because I've skipped a few and now I regret it. Um, I think, generally speaking, I think once you're dead, you're gone. If you go to heaven or hell, that's another issue, right? I don't want to debate that point. My point is I'm going to have zero contact, and I don't think this person is even aware that I'm at their funeral. It's really to support and show your respects for the family and friends that are there. Because a lot of funerals, I don't necessarily know the person that well. Uh, the ones that I've skipped, but I have skipped my uncle's funeral, and I kind of regret that now. Because I have a hard time dealing with it personally. I'm a big crybaby. Okay. Uh, I have trouble facing, you know, death to people that were close to me. And if I'm not that close with them, I even less so, right? But still, I'm a big crybaby at weddings and funerals, so I really have a hard time going to them. But now I kind of regret looking back, missing funerals and weddings that I had an opportunity to go to, but didn't, for my own selfish reasons, right? And so I'm definitely going to make an effort going forward. I mean, nobody likes it's inevitable, right? I'm not wishing anybody, to have a funeral, but I'm definitely definitely make some time because it's not only showing respect and support for the families and friends that are there, but also to the person that passed away. And I didn't used to believe in that. I didn't see any point in doing that for the person that passed away. They're gone. That's the way I saw it, you know? Uh, but now I kind of regret that decision. It's just a personal thing. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying that's how I felt. And when you say you're going to a funeral, I really respect you taking off work to go do that. I think it's important. Just my opinion. Not saying anybody else has to think the way I do. That's just how I feel. Okay, and Adam says, Vegas, return to your hotel and your kidneys are gone. Yeah, I ain't doing it. That's why I don't like to travel, man. I hear these stories. You wake up, no kidney. Not that anybody would want an old man's kidney. I'm kind of old now, but who knows? Uh, my wife's sister owns a condo in Vegas, so not too worried about people walking in, but I'll probably take my own 5 and 17. Yeah. Wow, that's a big lens though. The 1.2. Uh, I don't think you'll need anything that bright unless you really like that lens for the sharpness and performance it gives you optically and all of that. But with a lot of low light shooting in Vegas, there's a lot of bright lights going on, and you have to stop down anyway, right? To get a decent night street photography shot. And a lot of the shots of the light shows and things that go on in Vegas, you have to stop down. So I don't see you shooting at f1.2 very often because there's so many bright lights. And if you want to maintain the color and luminance of those lights so they don't get blown out, shooting at 1.2. But I'm making a lot of assumptions here, right? So, uh, but I just thought I'd bring that up. You'd probably get away with the 17 1.8 just as easily for those kind of situations. And then, do you have any sibling, Ron? Are you an only child of your mom? I do have a sister. Yep, I see her time to time, certainly every holiday. Uh, and in the summer, I see her a lot more. We go out on our, on her boat. She has a boat. My sister and her husband, they do all right, much better than me. They like their toys, you know. You would not believe. I should photograph some of their stuff. They got some really nice stuff. Um, man, I mean the boat's okay. It's just a small. I mean, it's a nice cabin cruiser, but they have some really nice cars and motorcycles, and they do okay. Um, but okay, wow, there's not many questions here. Not a lot of people here either, so it's okay. I can hang out for a little while. It hasn't even been an hour yet. So if you have any questions or want to talk about anything, I guess I'll do a little what do they call it? Um, Man, I'm forgetting the English language. Getting old sucks, man. I mean, I know I'm a lot younger than a lot of people that, especially a lot of my viewers, but still, uh, this one it starts, right? Anyhow, I have a live stream tomorrow with 5 OM system ambassadors, and we're going to talk about nature photography. And then this coming Sunday, I have another live stream with Lee Hoy, and we're going to talk about understanding your camera settings and also nature photography. And Lee Hoy's a character. I can probably just ask him one question, and he can probably talk for an hour all by himself. Uh, I don't know if you guys can hear that. This happens all day long. This is another reason I hate doing videos or making product review videos because I have to do them in my studio a lot of times. My house is inundated with ambulances, police sirens, fire trucks all day long and a lot of the night. So I have to stop, pause, re-record, or motorcycle. There's so many loud motorcycles and cars here. I mean, for God's sake, cars are supposed to be quiet, and mufflers were made for a reason. But these people, they buy like the loudest muffler. It's just really annoying. Especially these people with the turbos, and they like that little popping sound when they let off the gas. It's insane. Drives me nuts. And I'm trying to record a video, and I get these sounds. Never mind, being living like a mile from Air Force Base and the fighter jets and all the plane traffic and helicopters that are flying over my house every 2 minutes. Okay, so Bruce has another question. I'm sorry, Paul. Let me start with Paul. Uh, have you seen the Adeline with 3.5 millimeter TRRS jack, the Nikon Z50 I switched to over that to TRRS connector, which is yeah. So it's not that hard, Paul. You just want to look for audio cables. Now the Adeline has like a USB plug on the one side. That's the catch, right? It's not a standard TRS or, you know, pole connector on both ends. One side is a like USB type connector, and the other side is your pole connector, TRS or TRS. So what you might be able to do, gosh, there's adapters too, but you can't go from TRS to TRRS. You can go the other way around, but you can't go TRS to TRRS. So what would you do? Let me look at the Adeline again. You'd have to buy the Adeline with the TRRS, which is, I think, the basis of your question anyway. Why would Nikon go to a 3.5 millimeter jack? That's just weird. What was this? A Z50 Mark II. The Z50 Mark II, I thought had an infrared remote trigger release, but regardless, or Bluetooth. It is hard to find, isn't it? I'm not that familiar with the Z52, but uh, it has a USB-C port also. Sometimes I've seen the triggers, they have a USB-C uh, plug, like the Sony's. I bought one for my Sony. Let me look at my look at let me quickly look at my trigger. So that's a 2.5. And this is a USB. What is this called? This is a standard USB-C port, actually, micro USB. I'll figure this out, or give you something you can try. Because this doesn't look like a proprietary USB. This is pretty standard, right? Where's a standard? What am I? What? This is what you need. You need this. Wow. Uh, yeah, these are audio. Okay, that's close. We might have to come up with a weird solution. Okay, I got an idea. I don't have these. This is going to be a sight unseen type recommendation, but that's a 3 pole. We need a 4 pole. Oh, almost. Almost. This might work. But yeah, it is hard to find. Man, what the hell is Nikon thinking? Doesn't Nikon sell one? They probably want like 50 bucks for it, but that might be your only option if you want to do it directly. Damn it, I don't see one off the top by just doing a quick search. All right, so I'm gonna give you a couple of ideas though. Oh, that's close. All right. So here's one idea is you get this cable, it's $9, and then you get a USB to mini USB adapter, right? Or you get this one. This is probably a better idea. This is this mini USB? Oh no, it's a micro. So this is a micro. You need a mini USB to micro USB adapter. So let's say we add that to the cart and then mini USB to micro adapter. You can get this one. $6, $5. No. So yeah, these are the two items you might want to try. So this cable, right? This cable has the 3.5 millimeter TRRS, and then this adapter will convert the micro USB to a mini USB, and that should fit the Adolin trigger that we just looked at. Okay, uh, that's the best I can do for you today, Paul. But maybe think in terms of that. You're really looking for audio cables, and I don't know if that'll work or not. But that's something I would try, and if it doesn't work, just return it. You know what I mean? And or keep it because those are actually kind of useful little adapters and cables for other things potentially. and you're only out like, what was it, 15 or $16. Okay. See what else we got here. Bruce says, "What photography books do you recommend? Not equipment, but technique. Famous photographers." Oh, wow. That's too general a question because uh, it depends on the genre that you're interested in, right? But this is what I recommend to get you started. You need to look through you have to know who the famous photographers are, right? First of all, then you need to look at their work and see if you like it. And then you need to research if they have any books. Okay. So I'm the worst person to ask because I don't buy books. I just do everything online and look at stuff. But if you want a book or ebook or at least a place to start, a starting point to do this kind of research, because I like architectural type photography, so I downloaded a lot of PDFs and ebooks on architecture. And then from there, I would start to look at photographers that are kind of known for their architecture photography, because it's one thing to look at a picture and say you like it, but not really understand why or put your finger on it. So it's important to do a little due diligence and research the topic of why they took a picture in that way. It could be there could be a reason that that picture is attractive. It's not just an aesthetic, but there's sort of an underlying reason photographers known for the particular genre. And so you have to research the uh, the subject matter, right? So that's what I do. I downloaded a bunch of PDFs on architectural photography. Then I looked at uh, mostly uh, realistic type architectural photography, not artsy fartsy stuff. So I would just study that. But if I were looking for improving my photography uh, and that's best done by studying what the masters do, taking the photographs that you like from various photographers and put those together and pick out the reasons you like that and then come up with your own style. But you can imitate them at first just to get a feel for the photography process, right? The technique that they used. Because a lot of times once you identify the photographer, you can find resources to their technique, and then you can duplicate that, master that technique, and then move on to another one, right? So anyway, the best place to start is to research the best photographers, famous photographers. So let me give you a good place to start. Okay. See if I had a bookmark to it. Here it is. Okay, so start here. So this is the link I just shared. Photographers you should study. However, this is a very comprehensive list, right? And there's a little asterisk to some of them. I think that means that they're still alive, right? And active. So, for example, uh, one of my favorites is use of Karsh right here. So I click on use of Karsh. It's a nice, beautiful summary here, or bio, some quotes. Joe Edelman did an excellent job here. He also put links to a couple of videos about use of Karsh, and then he also listed some books for use of Karsh. Now, he doesn't have this for every single photographer because some photographers are not flushed out as or as known as use of Karsh. Use of Karsh is a big one. Another guy I really like is Patton, Peyton. I can never pronounce his name. If I search for it, oh, he doesn't have Patton on here. Wow. Okay. Ernst Haas is another one I really like. So some quotes, some videos, and some books, right? But that's where I would start, right? To really best answer your question, uh, where you can study their work and then look at their books. And some books, the biographies in particular, will ask them, about your approach to photography, your technique, things like that. And then also, um, there's a lot of times you'll find a YouTube video where they interview the photographer and they ask them about their thought process and their technique, things like that. Because the technical parts of photography, the tech, are pretty straightforward. Like I have a bunch of tutorials, and ultimately, photography is not about the gear. You have to understand and know your gear, right? I say that all the time. Everybody says that, not just me, right? Know your gear, but uh, it's the thought process, methodology, workflow, all of these things. A lot of times you'll find these in the biographies and in the interviews that you can find online sometimes if they died more recently, like in the last 50 years. But I would start there and research uh, from there. So kudos to Joe for putting that list together, and that's what I would do. And then Jess says, I wonder what the average age of your audience is. I'm 73. Wow. I can tell you. I can tell you what YouTube thinks the average age is because they give us all these analytics. I haven't looked at age recently, but when I do, uh, so yeah, here, 13 to 17 years old, 0, 18 to 24, 5%, 24 to 34, and so on, right? But 65 and older, 31% of my audience is 65 and older. 55 and older is another 20%. So we're talking about 50% of my audience is 55 and older. 65% are 45 and older. And then the United States is like a quarter, UK is 12%, and then so on. So those are the basic statistics. 90% male. Oh, I like that. 9.4% female. It used to be almost zero, but that's gone up quite a bit. So that's encouraging. Uh, there's because there's so many female photographers out there, but they don't watch YouTube. They're probably out taking pictures and being creative, you know? All right. And Shri is here. Good to see you, Shri. Hi, Rob. Please let me know if you see any deals with the Panasonic GH6. Sadly, Olympus cameras are not compatible with ZWO Skywatcher tracker and AS. Oh, wow. You're going to get into some deep sky astro, huh? I have seen the GH6 for under $1,000 used. Okay. If you're looking brand new, it's going to be a little far and few between, but I'll keep that in mind for you. Shri is local to me. I see him like every other week. So, and I have your direct contact info too. So I'll keep an eye out for you. Yeah, weird and frustrating. Yeah, that is weird. That is weird. 3.5 millimeter jack. So they only have manual, not an intervalometer. Okay. And ATR Bear says, what is the BG model number that attaches to the whole grip for the M5 Mark III? I don't know what you mean by BG model number. ATR bear, I'm sorry, I don't exactly know what you mean by BG model number. Maybe if you can rephrase that for layman like me. And with age comes wisdom, right? Wisdom, dementia, I don't want to go negative. With age comes wisdom, yes. You would think, but I feel like, golly, man, I cannot learn things as fast. I constantly have to do reshoots when I'm doing videos. And so I've been looking at teleprompters to script my stuff because I used to be able to just sit down for like an hour and crank out a video like review just off the top of my head, right? And now I'm struggling even with that, and doing live streams are okay because it's okay if I flounder a bit because it's live, but when I put my mind to something, it's not random like a live stream too, right? Live stream, I get hit with everything left, right, and center. But when I'm doing a video, I should be able to sit down and just bang one out in an hour or two, and have a cohesive, uh, well organized thought process. And because I don't like scripts, I like to just sit down and just tell it like it is, right? Or how it comes in my mind. But now I find myself, God, drafting these pages of outlines and trying to follow them. And now even outlines aren't good enough. I'm going to have to start scripting my entire video so that I can, not spend all day and doing 25 takes. Seriously, I got like a 20, 30-minute clip, and all I was able to get out of it was like maybe, uh, you know, 30 seconds to a minute worth of video out of about 30 minutes of retake, retake, retake. Oh, it's terrible. Man, it's quiet today. Um, so if there's really no other questions, I'll wait just another minute or so. Maybe we can call it here, but I don't know if I've done anything photographically. Not really. I did some flower photography earlier with the 60 macro, but that's it. I should get out today and take some pictures, right? I'll just double check if I missed anything. I guess, I got a couple minutes. Uh, Let me just see if I can see a good deal on a GH6. Yeah, under $1,000. Excellent condition. I mean, I don't have any affiliate links for this, but that's a good deal. Okay. I don't see any other chats here, so you guys have a great rest of your week. Look for my LED video coming out here. I'll probably just publish it like within the hour. And you guys have a great week, as I said. Thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate your support. Use my affiliate links down below. That's the easiest way to support me because you're getting a good deal, and I get a few pennies sometimes. God, I think I've earned as little as like 15 cents on a sale, but that doesn't matter. I enjoy shopping with you, talking about gear, and anything photography related. So thanks again, and I'll see you back tomorrow evening for the OM System Ambassador live stream.